Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Malaysian ship with aid for Rohingyas arrives in Yangon. UN officials say over 1,000 refugees killed in last week's army crackdown. Pope issues stinging criticism of Myanmar's treatment of Rohingyas. Israel passes controversial bill to legalize thousands of settler homes built on privately owned Palestinian land in the occupied West Bank. Government's top lawyer and opposition warn of legal challenges ahead. Iran's supreme leader rebuffs warning from Donald Trump to stop missile tests, says new US president is showing America's real face. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians protest against Trump to mark the 1979 revolution. Big blow to Donald Trump's travel ban plans. Government lawyer defending Trump's ban comes under intense scrutiny. Judges refuse to reinstate controversial executive order. President indicates case will go on to the Supreme Court. A Malaysian ship carrying aid for tens of thousands of persecuted Rohingya Muslims arrived in Yangon, where it was met by Buddhist protesters. Health workers and activists crowded onto the deck of the nautical Alia as it docked at Tilawa port near Myanmar's commercial capital on Thursday, carrying food, medical aid and clothing. Meanwhile, two senior United Nations officials dealing with refugees fleeing the violence suggested that more than 1,000 Rohingyas might have been killed in an army crackdown in the country. Here's a report.
A ship carrying tons of aid from Malaysia and destined for people living in Myanmar's troubled Rakhine state docked on the outskirts of Myanmar's commercial hub Yangon on Thursday. Officials unloaded 500 tons of supplies at the Tilawa terminal, with the rest of its 2,200-ton cargo bound for Bangladesh. The aid shipment has been organized by Malaysian Muslim groups as well as domestic and foreign aid groups to help the stateless Rohingya Muslim community in Rakhine. Malaysia's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs attended the docking and praised Myanmar for agreeing to accept the aid delivery.
Let us establish the goodwill first, because more important is that they require confidence building between outside international community and the Myanmar government. And I'm very much welcome the magnanimity shown by the Myanmar government in receiving the humanitarian aid today. It's a momentous event of the day. So let us celebrate that first.
Almost 69,000 Rohingyas have fled Myanmar for Bangladesh in the past 4 months amid a crackdown by security forces. The shipment has stirred opposition in Buddhist-majority Myanmar, where many see the Rohingya as illegal immigrants from Bangladesh.
We don't mind that they want to support people who are suffering, but we don't want political exploitation of this issue by calling them Rohingya. The name Rohingya doesn't exist.
Muslim-majority Malaysia has been a strong critic of Myanmar over the crisis in Rakhine, which erupted after attacks on border posts in October were claimed by Rohingya militants. Pope Francis weighed in on the situation and issued a stinging criticism of atrocities against Myanmar's minority Rohingyas. The Pope issued his defense of the Rohingyas in unprepared remarks following last week's UN report that said the Myanmar army had carried out mass killings, gang rapes and had burned villages.
I would like to pray together with you today in a special way for our Rohingya brothers and sisters. They have been thrown out of Myanmar, moved from one place to other because no one wants them. But they are good people, peaceful. They are good people. They are our brothers and sisters. They have been suffering for years. They have been tortured, killed, simply because they want to live their culture and their Muslim faith. Let us pray for them.
United Nations officials working with refugees in Bangladesh have said the death toll in the security sweep could be more than 1,000. Refugees have given journalists, Human rights groups and UN investigators detailed accounts of troops firing on civilians, burning villages, beatings, detention and rape. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat to talk about this week is KP Nair, consulting editor of the Telegraph. Mr. Nair, thank you so much for joining me on the program. You know, this Rohingya crisis has been going on for a while now. You know, several thousand refugees have been displaced. Aid groups are not being allowed into Myanmar. Bangladesh is not allowing aid groups to go into the refugee camps in Bangladesh. Journalists too are not being allowed to these regions. How bad is the situation really on the ground?
Situation is very bad, but more than anything else, the situation related to Rohingyas is a very sad reflection on the depravities of human nature. These Rohingyas have nothing. But more importantly, the Buddhists in Rakhine province, where all this is taking place, they also have nothing, you know. Almost 80% of the people, Buddhists and Rohingya Muslims put together, they are below the poverty line. They have a subsistence level of existence. Yet they are trying to take more from each other and kill each other and rape and maim each other. I mean, one can understand normally when people have wealth and or if one side has wealth and the other side doesn't have, or both sides have wealth and then there is dispute about the wealth, people do this. But this is a situation where neither side has anything, you know. So it's a very sad reflection on human nature. But I want to make 2 points. One is Aung San Suu Kyi. She was persecuted. She was not allowed to have her human rights, her civic rights and all that. And now she has come to virtual power. I mean, she is the state councillor, which is the de facto person running the country, although the army is still there. But she hasn't said anything in support of the Rohingyas. After she went through all that she went through for so many years under army's dictatorship,
True.
She is not saying anything about the Rohingyas. In fact, the reactions that I saw from her, the army cracked down on the army attacks on Rohingyas. She said it's an attack on jihadists. It's an attack on people who have been recruited into terrorism. The other point I want to make is that, see, what is the origin of the Rohingya problem? It was the British who brought them there. Now Britain has washed its hands off the whole thing. And even in the international discourse, nobody is talking anything about Britain.
You know, that's what I wanted to come to. You know, as far as the problem itself is concerned, you just pointed out how grave the situation is, but yet the international community does not want to do anything to solve the problem.
Well, I feel there is hope. Because, for instance, this Kofi Annan's commission has been set up. And Kofi Annan's statement, the former UN Secretary General, his initial statements about dealing with the problem have been very encouraging. And you know, he is someone who has a soft spot for these things, and he has years of experience, and he has dealt with I mean, before he became Secretary General, he has dealt with refugees and similar problems. So he is our best hope, and he is supposed to give his report by August 2017. No, he is very effective. Even on Syria, when he was appointed Ban Ki-moon's special envoy, Secretary General's special envoy, he was making progress. It was the intransigent rebel groups who didn't want anything to do with Assad and who were obstinate about Assad going before anything can be done, which wrecked Kofi Annan's Syria mission. I am hopeful that Kofi Annan may be able to take us forward.
And what should be done to ensure that, you know, the situation improves in the near future?
Well, first of all, there is a lot of hypocrisy and double talk about this issue. I mean, we talk of refugees and all that, and these refugees are going to Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, some have come to India, some of them have come to Kashmir. And you showed the clip of the Malaysian ship arriving at the port in Myanmar. But Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand, none of them have ratified the UN Convention on Refugees.
True.
Or the protocols, you know. I mean, so if you're not prepared to do even that much, shedding crocodile tears about the Rohingyas is a kind of hypocrisy. But
Sure.
The problem is also that, you see, Rakhine province again is very impoverished, you see. If it was in Yangon or some other place where their international investment is coming, people would have sat up and done more. But yeah, they have no stake. The people of Rakhine province, nobody has any stake in them,
Sure.
you know. So, it's a pity that they come from such poor place where poverty is so endemic and nobody has any interest in economic development there, which is actually the solution.
Indeed. All right. We'll have to leave it at that, Mr. Nayar. Thank you so much for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, moving on. Now, Israel approved a controversial settlement expansion bill which seeks to retroactively legalize thousands of settler homes built on private Palestinian land in the occupied West Bank. Palestine has slammed the bill, calling it legalized theft of their land, and has urged the international community to impose sanctions on their neighbors over the new law.
Israel on Monday passed a controversial bill retroactively legalizing thousands of settler homes built on privately owned Palestinian land in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli parliament voted 60 to 52 to approve the contentious bill late on Monday, despite warnings by the government's top lawyer and the opposition.
Do not give your hand to this insane law that threatens to destroy Israeli democracy. Israel's international stand and stands in complete opposition to the opinion of the Attorney General.
Palestinians slammed the new law as a means to legalize theft of Palestinian land and a move to deny them statehood.
I think it's a horrible law. I think it's impossible to take lands from their owners and to work against the ownership of people.
Under the law, the original Palestinian landowners will be financially compensated or given alternative land. The bill applies to about 4,000 settlement homes in the West Bank for which settlers could prove ignorance for building on privately owned land.
Taking property from residents of the occupied territory and giving it to nationals of the occupant is not necessary. It's probably illegal because it allows expanding the settlements, and it's not proportionate. It's also discriminatory because it basically allows the taking of property on the basis of nationality and giving it to other people on the basis of their nationality.
The bill was a key demand of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing cabinet. However, sources say Netanyahu privately opposed the bill over concerns that it could provide grounds for prosecution by the International Criminal Court. More than 600,000 Jews live in about 140 settlements built since Israel's 1967 occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The settlements are considered illegal under international law, though Israel disputes this. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
It's time for a short break now, but still to come, Donald Trump suffers big blow. US judges refuse to reinstate his executive order on travel ban. A government lawyer defending the ban comes under intense scrutiny from an appeals court. That and much more still to come. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said US President Donald Trump has shown the real face of America. In his first speech since Trump took office, Khamenei said that the president had exposed political, economic, moral and social corruption in the United States. The response follows Trump's imposition of new sanctions on Iran over a ballistic missile test.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Tuesday dismissed Donald Trump's warning to Iran to stop its missile tests. He said the new US president had shown the real face of American corruption. In his first speech since Trump's inauguration, Iran's Supreme Leader called on Iranians to respond to Trump's threats, which he said had failed to frighten Iranians.
We are thankful for this person who has arrived. Our thanks is for making our lives easy as he showed the real face of America. What we have been saying for more than 30 years about the political, economic, moral and social corruption in US ruling system. This person arose during the election campaign and in the period after that has confirmed it.
Khamenei's speech came amid an escalating war of words between Iran and the US. He said his country was not afraid of anyone and no enemy can paralyze Iran.
Now this man who has just arrived says that you must be thankful to America and the Obama administration. Why should we be thankful? We are not thankful at all. With all pressures and sanctions imposed on us, they hope to paralyze us. But of course they haven't fulfilled their hopes and will never do so.
Trump responded to a January 29th Iranian missile test by saying that Iran is playing with fire and slapped fresh sanctions on individuals and entities, some of them linked to Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards. The White House said the text was not a direct breach of a 2015 nuclear deal with 6 world powers, but violates the spirit of that. A UN Security Council resolution underpinning the pact urges Iran to refrain from testing missiles designed to be able to carry nuclear warheads, but imposes no obligation. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of Iranians rallied on Friday to swear allegiance to the clerical establishment following Trump's warning that he had put the Islamic Republic on notice. On the anniversary of Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution, which toppled the US-backed Shah, marchers across hundreds of military personnel and policemen headed towards Tehran's Azadi Square. Marchers carrying Iranian flags and anti-US banners ridiculed and condemned Trump's administration and its recent statements on Iran.
I think Trump is more dumb than others. At least his manner shows this. He is much weaker than former presidents in diplomacy. Altogether, the phenomenon of Trump has showed a large number of American society's realities.
The Tehran ceremony was rife with anti-US and anti-Israeli sentiment. Some people carried pictures of Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and British Prime Minister Theresa May, captioned "Death to the Devil Triangle." Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, a US federal appeals court has rejected President Donald Trump's attempt to reinstate his ban on citizens from 7 mainly Muslim countries. A government lawyer defending Trump's temporary travel ban came under intense scrutiny from the appeals court. The court questioned whether the ban order unfairly targeted people over their religion. It also sought to know what was the evidence to link the 7 countries to terrorism.
A US federal appeals court on Tuesday questioned an administration lawyer whether the travel ban ordered by President Donald Trump unfairly targeted people from 7 Islamic countries. A 3-judge panel also asked the limits to the president's power and the evidence to link the countries to terrorism.
The government pointed to any evidence connecting these countries with terrorism?
These proceedings have been moving very fast. The strongest point on that is that in 2015 and 2016, both Congress and the administration made determinations that these 7 countries posed the greatest risk of terrorism, and in doing so restricted visa waiver to people who had even traveled to those countries over the last 5 or 6 years.
During the oral arguments lasting over an hour, the Justice Department urged the judges to reinstate the ban order.
Under Section 212F, Congress has expressly authorized the President to suspend entry of classes of aliens when it is necessary or when otherwise it would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. That's what the President did here.
Solicitor General for Washington, which is one of the two states challenging the ban, asked the court to serve as a check on executive abuses.
That judicial role has never been more important in recent memory than it is today. But the President is asking this court to abdicate that role here, to reinstate the executive order without meaningful judicial review, and to throw this country back into chaos.
The court said it will issue a ruling as soon as possible, but the matter is ultimately likely to go to the US Supreme Court. A federal judge in Seattle suspended Trump's order last Friday, giving window to many travelers to enter the US as the order remained in limbo. The order, passed on January 27th by Trump, has since sparked protest in the US and across the globe. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, much else has unfolded around the world this week. Here's a roundup of the other international news in Globe Watch.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will stand trial over the allegations of illegally financing his failed 2012 re-election bid. The charge against Sarkozy, who ruled for 5 years before the unsuccessful bid, exposes the 62-year-old conservative politician to a 1-year prison sentence if convicted. The decision to put Sarkozy on trial comes as French politicians face growing scrutiny over their personal finances in a build-up to this year's presidential election in April and May. At least 20 people were killed on Tuesday in a bomb blast outside the Supreme Court in Kabul in Afghanistan. According to government officials, it appeared to be the latest in the series of attacks on the judiciary. A suicide bomber walking on foot detonated as employees left the court premises. The terror group Islamic State claimed the responsibility for the attack in a Twitter post. At least 15,000 people of a small town near Manila have lost their homes in a fire that raged overnight before being put out on Wednesday morning. About 1,000 homes were gutted in the compound. The cause of fire is being investigated. 3 evacuation centers have been opened and the food and water are being provided to 3,000 families who lost their homes. The US Senate on Wednesday voted to confirm Republican Senator Jeff Sessions as the next Attorney General of the United States. The Alabama senator was confirmed by a 52-47 vote. The confirmation followed a series of divisive hearings during which Democrats attacked Sessions' record on civil rights.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with all the sports news you might have missed in sports action. The IAAF upheld its global ban on Russian athletes and freezing all nationality switches. Following a council meeting in Monaco on Monday, IAAF President Sebastian Coe said Russian athletics should not expect full reinstatement before November. The decision rules out Russia competing at the World Championships in August in London. IAAF Task Force Chairman Rune Anderson added that although there have been productive meetings with Russian officials, many conditions were yet to be met before full reinstatement. Deportivo Alaves matched the greatest feat in their history by reaching the final of a major competition after defeating Celta Vigo 1-0 in the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey on Wednesday. Following a 0-0 draw in the first leg in Vigo, midfielder Edgar Mendes scored an 82nd minute winner to give the Basque Country club a supreme spot in the May 27th final. Alaves will take on Barcelona, which edged Atletico Madrid 3-2 on aggregate on Tuesday in the final. Alaves' only previous final was a 5-4 loss after extra time in a thriller against Liverpool in the 2001 UEFA Cup. Bayern Munich captain Philipp Lahm will retire at the end of the season. The 33-year-old, who captained Germany to their 2014 World Cup victory, announced his decision after Bayern's German Cup last 16 win over Wolfsburg. It was the defender's 501st game for the Bundesliga leaders. It means he will leave the German champions a year before his contract expires. The Bayern youth product made his senior debut in 2002 and has won 7 Bundesliga titles with the club as well as the Champions League. He retired from international football after Germany's triumph in Brazil in 2014. Britain world number 1 Andy Murray will play against France in the Davis Cup quarter-finals in April after missing the first-round victory against Canada last weekend. Murray was instrumental in Britain winning the Davis Cup in 2015 when he won all 11 rubbers in 4 rounds. In Murray's absence, Britain beat Canada 3-2 last weekend, while France defeated Japan 4-1. The two nations met at the same stage in 2015, with Britain winning at home on grass at Queen's Club. France are likely to choose clay for the tie. Batsman Joe Root, all-rounder Ben Stokes and bowler Stuart Broad have been interviewed about the England Test captaincy. The trio met Director of Cricket Andrew Strauss and his team on Thursday. Alistair Cook, England's highest Test run scorer, stepped down on Monday after a record 59 Tests in charge. Root, who was vice-captain to Cook from May 2015, is the favourite to take over, but Strauss previously refused to rule anyone in or out of the role. A new captain will be appointed before England's limited overs tour of the Caribbean in March. And finally, one of the biggest collections of Alice in Wonderland memorabilia is to be auctioned in Oxford, UK. It features over 3,000 items acquired by the late antiquarian book dealer Thomas Schuster and his wife Greta. Highlights from the massive collection to be sold in 360 lots have been exhibited publicly on 2 previous occasions. The sale with Malcolm's Auctioneers in Oxford is the first opportunity to view the collection in its entirety. I'm going to leave you with these visuals from England. This is Frank Pereira signing off.